Welcome back to In Behalf of Animals. I'm Nicole Arcello. This episode is fascinating, so very entertaining, and it's inspiring. I can't wait for you to hear my conversation today with longtime activist Ellen Ericksen. From movie screenings to spontaneous grocery store outreach to protests that push boundaries, Ellen takes every opportunity to be a voice for the animals every day. She is positive, and we have so many laughs today in this episode. It's good to remember we're all human, and we can find good in our lives and laugh with one another too. This episode also kicks off a series called Activist Spotlight, where we will have conversations with people out there on the front lines, whether they work independently or with other groups. They are active in their communities. But be warned, many of these people do a lot, a real lot. So I want to stress here that you are not expected to do a lot. You are not expected to do everything Ellen does, or I do, or any past or future guest does. And I am instructing you not to compare yourself at all. But while you are listening, I also want you to listen to your inner dialogue. If one thing a guest talks about in the 3 or 100 things they talk about, if one thing resonates with you, and there is one thing you say to yourself, hey, I can do that, write it down. And if that's the only thing you are ever comfortable doing for animals, then do it. And do it again, and do it again. And I guarantee it will strengthen your advocacy skills. It will open doors and create opportunities for the animals and for your activism to grow. And think of how many animals will benefit in the process. So find inspiration today, maybe awe, maybe gratitude, and also a lot of laughs. But never compare or feel like you don't have what it takes to be a strong, dedicated voice for the animals. I know you're going to have so much fun listening today, and you will be inspired. Guaranteed. So let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Ellen Ericksen. Hi, Ellen. Welcome to In Behalf of Animals.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks for having me today.
I am so excited that you're here with me today. We were just chatting for 2 seconds before we hit record, and it's just like, kindred spirits and just, being together feels so good, doesn't it?
It does.
It really does. So you have been a powerful voice for the animals for so many years, a real relentless activist. I think that's a perfect way to describe you. Um, Before all the organizing and the protests and the activism, let's just start at the beginning-ish with your vegan story. Tell us how you became vegan or how you got into. You start where you want to start today.
Well, I started at a very early age. Some people have a hard time believing the story, but it's 100% true. So I grew up
Awesome.
in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the Bronx. And when I was about 4 years old, my mother took me to Madison Square Garden to see the Ringling Brothers Circus.
Oh, wow.
And I was probably close to 4
Mm-hmm.
4 years old. And I have a lot of memories from that day because I had a lot of trauma that day. And then before my mom passed away a few years ago, we revisited that day.
Mm.
And, it's pretty accurate in my memories. So we go to the circus and we're
Wow.
sitting in this big arena and, we're watching the show and then the elephants came out. And I was like mortified,
Yeah.
watching it. And I was thinking, oh, I'm supposed to be having a good time right now, but
Mm.
I I didn't feel right.
Right.
So we finished watching the circus and then we got to go backstage. And it was really weird back there because all the creepy clowns were back there
Mm.
and a lot of the animals, but the elephants were back there and they were shackled to a concrete wall.
Yeah.
Um wherever we were. I don't know if we were under or,
Right.
just backstage. And I remember seeing the elephants, and they were pretty close, actually, even though I know they couldn't, break free because they couldn't break free of their shackles.
Right.
And for some reason, I had a weird connection with a female elephant. And I just remember looking at her, and she was just staring at me. It's
Wow.
like we couldn't take our eyes off of each other. And then I had a breakdown.
Mm.
I was really upset. I started crying. My mom was asking me what's wrong. And I remember telling her that the elephant was suffering. And she says, "No, the elephant's fine." And I said, "No, she's in a lot of pain."
Mm.
And anyway, my mood just progressed to
Mhm.
I was screaming.
Mm.
The security people came up. They told my mom to shut me up. And she says, "I
Oh.
can't." And I couldn't even budge. I was
Mm.
just focused on this elephant.
Yeah.
And so then the New York Police Department showed up, and two officers came in, and I remember they were talking to my mom, and I was still out of control, screaming and crying. And he also asked my mom to calm me down. She said, "I can't."
Mm.
So he proceeded to pick me up and throw me over his shoulder,
Oh
and
my.
we literally got kicked to the curb. So I tell everyone that was
Wow.
my very first disruption with the animals.
Yeah.
And
It
it
is. Oh my
was
goodness.
it was
It
crazy.
it gives it gives me chills because children really do see the truth, and they
Yeah.
do, and I totally believe that story. Children know. They know. You can see it in their eyes,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
they feel that.
Yeah, and then, while my mom was sick, before she died, like I said a few years ago, we revisited a lot of stuff from my
Yeah.
childhood, and that was one incident that we talked in depth about.
Mhm.
So, that started it.
Yeah.
Although, I always knew I had a great sense of empathy,
Mhm.
not just for animals, but for um, humans also
Yeah.
that were abused, neglected. I always could tell if something was not right with someone,
Right.
and that just stayed with me my whole life. I didn't even know what it was initially
Mm.
until I got older.
Right.
So we never went back to the circus, thank goodness.
Mm.
And my life just started progressing, and then I evolved into things that happened around mealtime in my house.
Mhm.
I had a strict father, New York City. He
Mm.
worked very hard. He actually scared me a little bit,
Yeah.
but I never backed down to him. So,
Right.
meal times were always traumatic. My
Mm.
mom would serve us animal products that made me just sick and nauseous to smell them. And
Mhm.
this was also at an early age.
Mhm.
And I can remember, my mom serving me breakfast, like soft
Right.
boiled eggs and milk. And like I'd almost vomit from the smell.
Right.
And so I never ate it. Like I would figure out how
A
to
way
get rid
out.
of my food, yeah, without
Way
getting
out.
caught.
Right.
And so as soon as my mom would leave the kitchen, I'd dump the milk down the sink. I'd, have a napkin in my lap and scrape everything in my lap.
Right.
And, I can remember her talking to me, as I got a little bit older, telling me, "You have to drink milk. It's good for you."
Mm.
And I remember telling her I can't drink it because it would just make me gag, the smell of it.
Right. Did
And
did you have
so
siblings? Do you have siblings too?
I have a younger sister, and she is also a vegan, of
Yay.
course.
Of course.
And,
Or else, right?
yeah, I'll lead up to why she doesn't protest because she has some trauma from something I took her to when we were teenagers.
Okay.
But, anyway,
Mm.
my connection with the animals with food was very early
Yeah.
also. So I have a lot of food trauma,
Mm.
and, I did have some eating disorders, when I got a little bit older as a teenager related to food.
Right.
And it's real. And sometimes I'll post
Mhm.
something online about something that pops in my head, and, I'll number it food trauma 925. I mean, I have
Right.
so many stories around food. So I
Mm.
think the evolution of my activism and, food started, probably around the age of 2 or 3,
Right.
um, until I could figure out how to dispose of it. And it was hard. I was really torn. I
Mhm.
mean, we had a lot of arguments as a teenager at the
Mhm.
dinner table because I refused to eat what was served.
Right.
And then I got my sister in trouble telling her not to eat it also.
Oh,
So
so you were outspoken from the get-go.
oh, yeah. It was,
Wow.
and my dad would be, yelling, and I would just tell him I'm not eating it,
Right.
and all I kept thinking, what is the worst thing he could do to me is kill
Right.
me, and I knew he wasn't
He
gonna
wouldn't
do
do that.
that.
Right.
So, um, he died early. Yeah, I was a teenager when he passed,
Mhm.
and, my sister, started her journey very young also with food, reading a book by Albert Schweitzer.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, so she got it very early also.
Yeah.
And, like I said, like in my early teens, I remember I snuck out of the house and coaxed my sister to come with me. And I don't even know why we did that. We ended up at a protest where we lived, and it was crazy because the police came,
Mhm.
and it was very disruptive. We were tear gassed. There
Oh
were
my.
police chasing us on
This was
horses.
an animal protest?
It was a more of a civil rights war
Civil rights. Oh,
protest.
okay.
Yeah,
I was like, "Wait a minute, what kind of protest was
I know,
this?"
but the Hells Angels were there too, so I never quite could figure that out.
Right.
And I remember, just telling her, "Run,
Mm.
because if we get arrested, dad's
Yeah.
gonna murder us for sure."
Right.
And so we were running, we were, tear gassed, and we did get out without getting arrested, and I was probably 14.
Right. Wow.
And, so that started, the event of protesting for me.
Yeah. Did you
And
get that, like, the protesting bug? Like,
oh,
that you're like, "This is my life now."
oh, yeah, it
Yeah.
started with the elephant, actually.
Yeah.
I've always been very
Mhm.
outspoken,
Mhm.
and, when I got to be a teenager and I decided to become more actively involved with protesting and disruptions, whether it be human or animal rights, I had to make a decision not to have fear.
Right. I
And
get that.
that's my drive. I have
Mhm.
no fear. I'm 4'11". Um,
You're sh I'm taller than you? Wait a minute.
I'm really short, and
I'm
you
5
know,
foot, like,
oh,
barely,
you are
barely.
taller than
So
me.
I'm not
Yeah,
taller than many people.
yeah,
We
that's
live on
great.
different sides of the country. One of these days, we have to get together
Oh
and see
yeah,
each other in
definitely.
person. Yeah.
Thank goodness I'm not losing any height. That's a good thing.
That's good, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But no, back to no fear, and I think that's
Yeah.
yeah, how do you, how do you manifest that? How do you, is it because you're speaking for the animals? Is that's how I try to get rid of, any
Yeah.
fear,
That's the bottom line for me.
and I think a
Like,
lot of people are afraid.
yeah, and, people are even afraid to come to, like, a SeaWorld protest, and
Yeah,
some of my protests are, I have to rate them on,
yeah.
high risk, medium risk, low risk,
Mhm.
because, I understand that a lot of people are not comfortable protesting.
Right,
And, and I would never guilt someone into coming to a protest, but I always have to let them know ahead of time that if it's a riskier protest,
right,
like at the racetrack, those are
right,
more high risk protests,
right.
because I have my protests on the property. So
Right.
we have to interface with the people coming to the track
Right, and this is
and
Del Mar for people who
Del Mar
don't know, in
Racetrack.
California, yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm,
So it's one of the most elite, tracks in the country. It's very
mhm.
celebrity driven. It's
Yep.
in a very wealthy area in San
Mhm,
Diego and Del Mar, and, they say they have a lot of prestige,
mm.
and so when we go to these protests, people don't like us there,
Right,
and, we're right in our faces.
right.
So at the protests, I tell people they're moderate risk if they behave. So, I have protesters there. I usually do the leafleting,
Mhm,
and I'll talk to the people coming in. Like I can grab them for like 20 seconds and give them the
right,
whole rundown about how cruel horse racing is.
right, right.
And some people accept it, some people are angry.
Mm.
It's
We're
a
there we're
weird
we're
thing.
we're there to ruin their day, so and they don't like it, but that's
Exactly.
our job. We want them to remember to know that this is cruelty, this is not right, they shouldn't be supporting
Yeah.
this, and that makes them upset, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've had some good stories though that have come out of being at that racetrack. And I've
Yeah.
been out there for many, many years. When they're here racing, I'm there every weekend. I never
Mhm,
miss. I don't even take a vacation in the summer because of the track.
mhm.
But years ago I met a family there and they came up, it was a husband and wife and their two young kids,
Right.
and I believe his mother. And the woman came up to me and she said, "Hey, why are you guys protesting here?" So I gave her, the rundown about horse racing and
Yeah.
she started crying.
Oh,
And she looked at her husband and she said, "I'm not going in.
that's great.
I think we need to leave." And
Right.
then he got very angry and was yelling at me for ruining their family day.
Too bad.
And yeah, that's pretty much what I said. I said,
Yeah,
"There's other things you could be doing today besides,
especially in California, right?
yeah,
In that
taking your
area.
kids to the
Right.
racetrack," which I have issues with. And, I've talked to our political people also that bringing
Mhm.
underage children to a place of gambling where there's drugs, alcohol, and other things that happen there
Right.
should not be allowed. Anyway, he had a fit. She was crying. The kids were young. They didn't know what was going on. And, I gave her one of my cards and asked her to call me.
Yeah,
And they did go into the track. Anyway, she called me later in the day
that's
and,
great.
she said, "I'm really sorry we went in."
Yeah.
And to make a long story short, I met her and her family the next day for lunch.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I know I have some pictures of it. People actually thought we were related because we look alike.
Oh,
And she
that's
brought the
funny.
kids, and her husband came, and she came, and we went to a vegan restaurant.
Awesome.
And we were there about 3 hours for lunch,
Wow.
and he did apologize, because I believe a horse did die at the track that day.
Mm.
And, I had a lovely lunch with them. They promised me they would never, ever go to anything that involved animals for the rest of their lives. I had great conversation with their children. I brought them
That is awesome.
information. So, there's been positive outcomes from
Yeah,
going. They're not all negative.
right,
And it happens a lot when we're at the track. People actually leave. They don't even go in once they
right,
hear the truth.
right.
So,
Tell me
what was
about
the
your experience about, with SeaWorld, just since we're talking about protesting at this moment, we're just
yeah,
like, what's your experience there and what's happening and families going in there?
yeah. Well, SeaWorld, I've been protesting for a really long time,
Mm,
like the racetrack. It's very close to my house.
yeah,
So, I used to have like 2 or 3 protests a month
right.
and over the years, and I had some really giant protests out there where hundreds of people would come to protest.
Yeah,
And when Blackfish came out, I had a big protest that day, and some of the people that were in Blackfish, came to the protest. I had
yeah.
media with me all day, and then I think there were 1,000 people at that protest.
Wow.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And, then we all went to watch Blackfish together, and I had a news crew with me the whole time. So we had some great news coverage there.
Yeah.
SeaWorld is still in business. They shouldn't be in business.
No. I
They're
thought
on lease land from the city of San Diego. They have not paid their rent in years. So they owe the city of San Diego millions of dollars, and they're still allowed to operate. But the bottom line for me with SeaWorld is the animals have a horrible life there,
right.
and I still continue to organize protests there. It's
Mhm.
very important.
Yeah.
SeaWorld's attendance rate has dropped.
Mhm.
Their yearly pass members have dropped, and
Right.
I know they're directly related to the protests
Right.
because, they've
Yeah.
seen the truth. I've done a
Right.
lot of news coverage here,
Yeah.
but, there's so many other things, that you can do, like when there's OSHA gets involved and when the coastal commissioners in
Right.
San Diego were meeting years ago. I try to go to these meetings
Right.
so I can go on record.
Right.
And as you
Right.
know, that's very important
Yes.
that we go on record, like I do with the California Horse Racing Board,
Right.
which is a joke, by the way.
Right.
SeaWorld, I've had issues with them legally over the years
Mhm.
because I was assaulted there by an employee,
Mm.
not even during a protest. I had gone to do a media story because they got in trouble with OSHA years ago,
Oh,
and
right.
they announced on the news that I would be coming, so
Mhm.
they were expecting me. Um, I wasn't probably should have gone to the emergency room, but I couldn't go because I was rescuing 2 pigs that afternoon, so I was a little pressed for time. Um, but, I ended up going to court and suing them, and,
That's awesome.
of course, I had a great outcome, and
Yeah.
the San Diego Police Department were my witness.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think I have a permanent restraining order from them. I received a letter from them years ago
Wow.
from their attorneys in Orlando, accusing me of being a terrorist and that I had affiliations with other terrorist organizations, and that if I ever stepped foot on their property, they would take me down. So we protest outside.
Right.
SeaWorld actually is a low risk, protest
Right.
because we don't have interactions with people or on the
Okay.
street. Everyone that drives into SeaWorld has to see us.
Right.
And, it's great. I mean, I
Yeah.
could probably talk about what's going on SeaWorld for 4 days with you.
Right.
But their attendance is down, and people are becoming more aware that the animals there do suffer and that
Right.
SeaWorld is a corrupt company. And I have no problem saying that,
Right.
um, on the air because it's true.
Right.
So I'm planning on a protest in December at SeaWorld for one of their orcas, Corky, who has been locked up as a slave for 58 years, I believe
It's
now.
so heartbreaking.
It's terrible what goes on
They're
there.
probably one of the most smartest of the species in the world,
Oh, yeah.
and they're just tortured every day for 50 how many years did you say? 50 over 50
Corky,
years?
I think it's 58 years on December 11th when she
Awful.
was captured. Yeah. So several years ago, SeaWorld decided they had this big idea, even though I know it was a joke. They
Mm.
wanted to build a larger tank.
Mm.
So they went on the media here stating, "We
Right.
care so much about our orcas, we want to build them a larger tank." So, I did a news story with them and I said, "That's a lie." You
Right.
know, um, they want to get more orcas. I
Right.
already know what their plan is. Anyway, that's where the California Coastal Commissioners came in because they have to approve it. We went to a big meeting in Long Beach, California, which is about 2 hours from here. And SeaWorld had busted in about 150 of their supporters, put them in T-shirts
Right.
supporting, SeaWorld. It was a long day. It was about an 11-hour meeting.
Wow.
And the condition they decided at the end, the condition to get the new tank would be they could not obtain any more orcas or have any pregnant orcas at SeaWorld, which means, not taking any genetic material from the one orca that they used, Telecom, because
Right.
he was the big sperm bank.
Right.
And they said, we agreed to that.
Right.
And then the next day I met the media here and we did a big interview at SeaWorld. And I told them, because they were at the meeting also, that it was not true. Um, about building a larger tank for the existing orcas, and that indeed they were looking at orcas that were being captive in Russia. So I already knew about
Right.
the orcas there. Anyway, to make a long story short, a new
Mm,
tank did not get in
mm,
because they couldn't get any
of
more
course not.
orcas. So
Right.
the orcas that are there's 8 left here now,
Mhm.
live in very small
Awful.
tanks, exposed to the elements. They're not well, they're medicated, and they have mental illness from being confined for so long. Yeah, it is
It's just
terrible.
terrible. Anyone who's listening who has not, um, seen Blackfish,
Mhm.
go watch it. You just got a really good snapshot of what's going on there from what Ellen is saying, but, see more and try to get more people to, I'll see now we're in upstate New York, and sometimes I will see, school organizations
Mhm.
raffling off, like, SeaWorld tickets. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
we write into them and say, "What are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
This is cruelty." And, um, so we're talking about protests. There's so many things. I have, like, so many questions for you that aren't written down that are in my head. But
Okay.
but you are like a walking, talking book on all forms of activism. So we were talking about that a little bit before we started we hit record, and your life is activism for
Mhm.
animals, and I'm sure you do activism for humans too. We're always accused
Mhm.
that we don't care about humans. We can get to that, but
Oh, yeah.
and we were talking a little bit about the shirt you're wearing today, and your
Mhm.
water bottle, and you can tell us what is on there because no, we can't see you, but
Yeah.
I can see you. But yeah, so what is like a typical? Do you want to like walk us through like a typical day, or um, when you get up in the morning and you're going to go somewhere? What do you do? How do you prepare? I know you're always ready for a
Yeah, my
conversation.
car is loaded up for any
You got a
situation.
message mobile,
Yeah,
right?
I have my megaphone next to
Right.
me in my front seat, for anything, although I have an extremely big mouth, I don't even need it. I do work full time, I work in healthcare,
Okay.
and, I have a great boss
Right.
who, supports me,
That's great.
and, so I do work, but, the weekends, I mean, it's just part of my everyday life. When I go
Yeah,
grocery shopping, I wear this T-shirt that says "Eating animals is weird." Everyone
that makes people
stops
think.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I have great conversations, in the store. I always have leaflets on me, so if
Mhm.
anyone wants information, or I give them one of my cards,
Right.
and, people can reach out to me. I've
Right.
had some really interesting encounters at grocery stores with people.
Mhm.
I met these 2 women a few years ago at Trader Joe's here, and, they were really an interesting, I think they were cousins. So they were shopping, and one of the women reached to go get butter, and so I said to her, I said, "Don't pick that up." So she dropped it like it was a bomb, and she goes, "What?" And I said, "You don't wanna eat that." You know, um, and then she started recording. So all of this is recorded somewhere. I'll see if I can send you a copy of it.
Yeah.
But her cousin was telling me that, she's trying to eat healthy,
Mhm.
and because she had some health issues. And, I looked at what was in her cart and I said, what's in your cart is not healthy. And
Right.
she thought it was.
Right.
She had like turkey bacon and,
Right. What they
animal products.
what they tell you is healthy, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I said, "Dump all that stuff, let's go shopping, and I'll shop with you." So, I spent about 45 minutes with them at Trader Joe's, and we shopped,
Yeah.
and, it was a great experience for me and for them, and, depending on my mood, like, if I have a little bit more time to kill at the grocery store, I'll just hang out in the dairy department,
Right.
and yeah, I'll just hang out in the
I
dairy
love that.
department, and, like, someone will go to grab, cow's milk, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wait." I said, "Don't buy that." I said, "It's really bad for you." And I said, "Let me show you some better options."
Right.
And they're like and they're so flabbergasted, they're like, "Okay."
They don't know
And
what to do, right?
I don't even know what to say.
That's good.
Yeah,
You
so
render them speechless and then just go
yeah,
from there,
and
right?
And then I'll show them, I'm like, "Look at all these plant-based, options for non-dairy
Right.
that is healthier for you and no animal has to suffer and die." And, a lot of them will ask me what I prefer, and I just tell them, "Buy a couple different kinds and see which one you and your family like." Some of the other things that I do which are a little bit edgier, and I usually do this around Thanksgiving. I'll go shopping and I'll find out where the store's PA system is.
Oh my.
And, people will be shopping and I'll sneak into the area where it is. So the first time I did this years ago, I was with my nephew. It was at Thanksgiving, and we were in a huge grocery store to pick something up for my sister,
Mhm.
and we were going through the checkout line, and the cashier guy, and I said, "Hey, I want to make an announcement in the store. How can I do that?" And he goes, "I don't think you're allowed to do that." And I said, "Yeah, just show me how to use the intercom and I'll go to another register." And he goes, "Okay." So my nephew started recording. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" So I went to another register and I got on the store loudspeaker and made an announcement about turkeys, about how many turkeys are killed for the holiday,
Yeah.
how they're born, raised, and slaughtered,
Mhm.
that there's healthier, um, better options for food than eating a dead animal.
Right.
Anyway, I never have anything prepared to say, so whatever falls out of my mouth.
There you go.
Yeah. So, like, the 2 managers come running up,
Oh,
and
no.
I was already done, and they said, "You can't do that." And I said, "Well, I already did it." And
Too
they're
late.
like, "Well, we're gonna call the police." And I said, "Okay,
Right.
that doesn't scare me."
Right.
And I said, "What are they gonna do, arrest me for telling the truth?"
Right.
And they just walked away. So, that video is on one of my social media. I think my nephew posted it to YouTube, but I continue to do that. And I do it alone,
Mhm.
I don't care. Like, we have a local grocery store here, and I can sneak into one of their departments and get on the floor with the PA system and make an announcement, and then it takes them a while to figure out where I am. But it's pretty quick and effective and efficient.
I love that.
So by the time they think they have found me, I'm done.
Right.
But everyone in the store hears the
That they
message.
heard it. Right.
Yeah.
And then
So,
they're gonna talk about that. If you're in the grocery store, think about it, right? And someone says that, they're gonna say, "Oh, I was at the store, and someone was saying," so they're gonna talk about that and think about that. That's like a rare occurrence that happens,
yeah.
right? So, I think
Yeah.
it's a great way to plant seeds, right?
Yeah. A couple
I
years ago, I was at my sister's Thanksgiving again, like the day before, and she says, "I'm gonna go into the store." We were at Sprouts,
Mhm.
which is a local, more of a health food store, although
Right.
they do sell animals.
Mm.
And so we pulled up and she goes, "Just wait in the car. Don't come in. I'll be right out." And I said, "Okay." So she goes in the store and I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to wait in the car." So I go into the store, I'm walking around. Everyone's, got a lot of turkeys in their carts.
Mm.
And I ended up in the vitamin department and there was a young girl working there. And I said, "Hey," I said, can you leave for about 2 minutes? And she goes, "Why?" And I said, "'Cause I'm gonna do something." And she goes, "Is it something bad?" And I said, "No, I just don't want you to get in trouble." So she left the area, and I once again got on the store's PA system and made an announcement about turkeys.
Well.
And, it was quick,
Mm.
and then my sister walked by, and I was done, and she goes, "Oh my god, I was in the bathroom, and I heard your voice." And she goes, "I thought I told you to wait in the car." And I said, "Yeah, I can't do that." So, people ask about my activism. There's, like,
Mm.
different levels
Yes.
because,
There's a lot of
um
different things you do.
yeah,
Um,
so, I'm an activist
mhm,
for all.
mhm,
I'm very active in my neighborhood where I live with the unhoused. I feed and clothe them
mhm.
when I'm not doing other stuff.
Right.
And I like to lecture. I've lectured at
Yeah.
universities and high schools and middle schools here. And I really enjoy speaking to young people to
Yes.
encourage them to make a change.
Mhm.
And then my activism has different levels also.
Mhm.
I'm mostly a disruptor, but I've had to learn over the years that it all depends where I'm at
Right.
on how I approach people.
Mhm.
And I do a lot of media here, so I do have to be professional also.
Right.
And, I do work and, a lot of times on Mondays, people will come into the office and, they're so excited because they've seen me on the news.
Right. I was going to ask you about work and,
Yeah.
them seeing you on the news, but also, activism at work, are you able to do some?
Yeah. So when I interviewed with my boss years ago, I had to be totally transparent with her.
Mm.
I told her as an animal rights activist and I do a lot of media and I'm very busy here and in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
And that if there was any issue with that, it probably wasn't going to work.
Mm.
But I reassured her that I'm professional at work and know my boundaries. And however, if a patient asks her about something diet related or anything, she sends them to me. I
Oh,
am
awesome.
certified in plant based nutrition, so I
Mhm.
feel confident into speaking
Right.
to a lot of people about
That's
their
great.
diet and nutrition.
Right.
But, there's an opportunity every day
Mhm.
where you can be a voice for the animals, no matter where you are,
Right.
whether you're alone or with a group of people. I tell people just to get out of their comfort zone
Yeah.
because the animals never have any comfort.
Right.
So
They will never
that's
we will never have it for a minute or an hour at a protest, whatever they're saying to us. We will
mhm,
never have it as bad as them ever,
exactly. So
ever. Oh,
So that's my driving force,
yeah.
The last couple Thanksgivings, I haven't gone to family. I've stayed in my neighborhood and have
Mhm.
fed the unsheltered in my neighborhood, and they all get vegan food. I won't give them, animal products.
Right.
And
And so much for the people who say that, we don't care about humans, we only care about animals, right? They say
yeah,
that at protests, they say it here anyway sometimes. I was gonna ask you what keeps you going? You're talking about that, your driving force.
I don't have burnout. A lot of people
Yeah.
ask me if I get burnt
I was gonna
out.
that's another question, yeah.
Yeah, for some reason, I mean, sometimes I get tired of going to the racetrack in the summer
Right.
because I'm there every weekend. It's
Right.
hotter than hell there.
Mhm.
Um, and then if I think about not having a protest on a weekend, then I have enormous guilt
Right.
about even thinking about not organizing a protest.
Mhm.
So I do have a lot of guilt when it comes to the animals.
Yeah.
Anytime I have an opportunity to talk about them, like at the racetrack.
Mhm.
Our protests are non-disruptive
Mhm.
unless someone disrupts our protest.
Right. Someone else.
They're more educational,
Right.
and to get on the property at Del Mar was not an easy thing to do years ago because we used to protest on the street.
Right.
And then, I said, no, we're going to go inside. So it was a
Yeah.
kind of a big legal thing, but they allow
Right.
me to stay there
Yeah.
because I am professional.
Right.
Um,
Creating those
yeah,
relationships is good, with
yeah,
different, we've done that over the years with different venues, and if you
hmm,
create those relationships and they know, a lot of time the police are friendly. They're on
yeah,
our side, I find too.
yeah,
Because they know we're just, I always say to the police, I'm just here to speak for the animals who can't speak
yeah,
for themselves. A lot of the
yeah.
times they go, okay,
But
yeah,
good things come from that. Like at the Del Mar protests, we work with a different law enforcement agency than the San Diego police.
mhm,
And before my protests every summer, I have to meet with security and the police and,
right.
legal people, even though it's always the same. But a few years ago, like I've gone through like 4 or 5 different people, different law enforcement people that are in charge of protests and demonstrations. So they
Mhm.
have a whole department there.
Oh, wow.
And I've gone through 4 or 5 of those people. And the last one, who I'm still in contact with, he left that position but is still with the department.
Mm,
When I first met him 3 years ago, when he was new to the job, we met and, we talked about horse racing. I told him why I was there and
mhm.
how important it was and how bad it is.
Right.
And I've been mentoring him for several years, and he's a vegan now.
That's awesome.
And
I know this story.
yeah, it's great.
It's great. I
Um,
know.
I know we're
That's
working
so
on the
awesome.
rest of his family, but some of
Yeah.
the other officers that did leave, they call me before they call me to tell me that they're leaving that position or they're going to retire. And I usually meet with them. They want to meet with me. So I'll meet with them and they thank me for being there
Awesome.
and they
Yeah.
encourage me never to stop. So even though, a lot of them, they have to stay unbiased when they're there, actually
Mhm.
were supporting me behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's really, really important.
It really is.
I
Those
have to have
relationships. You're
yeah.
super super likable person. Like some people hearing some of your stories may be like intimidated, like, oh, I couldn't do that. But you put so much thought, and that's what I'm thinking as you're speaking is you put so much thought into everything you do, and you really analyze the work you're
Mhm,
doing. You analyze, is this the right thing to do? And
mhm.
you put so much thought and heart and soul into it, and that's just so important. And I admire that. I admire
Oh,
you for
thank
all of
you.
that so much. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the animal rights movement right now? That's a that's a
Well,
big question, but
I it is a big question because
mm,
it's changed so much even before
mhm,
COVID came into the picture. Because I protested all through COVID.
yeah,
I had protested the racetrack even though they were racing and there were no
no
people going
spectator,
to the
right?
races,
Yep,
but we were still there
right.
every weekend. I felt that
Mhm,
was really important.
yeah.
Um,
If
I
the
just
horses have to be there, the animals have to be there. We
yeah,
have to be there. We did that too. Yeah.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So I think, and this isn't to bash people on
Right.
their intentions of, um, animal rights, what they're eating, or anything like that, but
Mhm.
I think some people come into the movement for the wrong reason,
Mhm.
um, especially now with so much social media.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of people leave activism because their heart wasn't into what they were doing.
Right.
And but I would have to say the majority of people that are doing animal rights now do it for the animals,
Right.
and I love to mentor people,
Mhm.
and, I don't pretend to know it all, at all. I just know what works for me,
Right.
and it may not work for other people.
Mhm.
I'm pretty bold, and
Mhm.
most people are not. They worry about the outcome, their job, their
Mhm.
position in society or whatever.
Right.
Um, I think, grabbing people at a very early age is very important. I had a young woman reach out to me years ago that went to a high school here locally, and they had started like a vegetarian club,
Mm.
and she asked me if I could come to the school,
Mm.
and I said, "Well, I'll try." So that was a whole process,
Mhm.
getting interviewed by the principal and the vice principal.
Oh, right.
And so I got to go to the school. I got to speak to the whole student body
Awesome.
and was in a lot of classrooms, but these girls needed help because there was no food for them to eat on the school campus.
Mm.
And so I ended up going out there for almost 2 months on
Wow.
Fridays and to teach them how to advocate for themselves and, how they could leaflet at lunch with their
Right.
classmates, how they can go to the school boards and ask for food that they can eat. And I spent a lot of time out there and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I got very close with the teachers and with a lot of students.
Yeah. That
And
sounds so rewarding to be able
yeah,
to really teach people how to be advocates.
I'm still in touch with some of these girls. They've graduated college and
Oh, wow.
have a life, and they're not eating animals. So that makes me really, really happy. And so I love getting in where I have a larger audience that
Mhm.
I can speak to.
Right.
I got invited to at the University of California here in San Diego years ago.
Yeah.
I had a protest at SeaWorld and some students came, pre-med students, and they came to
Awesome.
the SeaWorld protest. And after the protest, I talked to them and thanked them for coming
Mhm.
because it was their first protest ever.
Oh, wow.
And when I was talking to them, I asked them how long they had been vegan,
Mhm.
and, it went dead silent.
Oh.
And I said, "Oh," and then one of the girls says, "Well, I'm trying to get my boyfriend, to be a vegetarian." And I said, "Oh, wait, you guys all eat animals?" And they're
Mm.
like, "Yeah." And I said, "So you came to a protest for some animals, but you eat others?"
Right.
I said, "I think we should probably have a conversation about that." And so they're like, "Okay, whatever." We're just here at SeaWorld.
Right.
Anyway, the main guy there, the most verbal, um, he says, "Well, I understand what you're saying, but, we're not interested in that." So I gave him one of my cards and I
Mhm.
told him, I said, "If you change your mind, just call me."
Right.
And so a couple months had passed and I get a phone call like at 2:30 in the morning. I don't know, he's probably been drinking or partying. And he called me up. Oh, and before they left SeaWorld, he says, "Well, you don't know my name." And I said, "Oh, I don't need to know your name." And he goes, "Well, how will you know it's me?" I said, "Just tell me that you're the speciest that I met at SeaWorld." And he goes, "Oh, that was rude." And I said, "Yeah, but it was true." So when he called me in the middle of the night, he said, "Hey, it's me, the speciest." And I said, "Okay, number one, don't call me at 2:30 and I'll call you back during the day." So I called him and he told me that he was so upset about what I said to him about the animals,
Right.
calling him a species, which he quite didn't understand what that meant, and that he had thought about it for about 2 months,
Mm.
and that he indeed stopped eating animals.
Awesome.
And, he told me he
I
was
love that.
talking to one of his professors and on that the professor wanted me to come in and lecture. So that got my foot in the door at that
Yeah.
university, which was great.
Yeah.
So I went there several times. We started off slow and casual, and then I ended up in one of the large lecture halls,
Mhm.
and a couple of my friends came. I said, "I need someone to come, that can kind of rate my skills there, to make sure I'm doing a good job because I never take notes when I lecture. I
Right.
just speak freely.
Right.
It works a little bit easier for me than
Yeah.
reading something."
Right.
And I was out there several times and was very successful. I really enjoyed being out there, which led
Mm.
me to be on their public radio at the university. And I did some podcasts with some students there who are now in journalism.
Wow.
And, one thing just leads to another thing.
Yeah. And you
And
maintain optimism, which is
always,
which is very hard, I think, for all of us, at
mm,
times we have bad days or
mhm,
and you don't get burned out. I think that's really amazing because I think it's a lot of people do get burned out
yeah.
or they have those negative moments.
But don't think I don't, because when I do leave, like after a protest at Del Mar, it takes me about 2 or 3 days to recover
Yeah.
mentally.
Right. It's a lot.
Um, I have a lot of pain when I'm out there mentally, especially if a horse dies that day.
Right.
And, which, leads me to guilt for not being there if I just, think about not going. So I can't even think about it.
Right.
But, I recover, I'm not in therapy.
Right.
I
And
just
I think that's a normal feeling. I feel like that too
mhm,
sometimes. I feel a few days after, I'll still do my work or whatever, but I'm just like, okay, regrouping
yeah,
and it sounds like you are 24/7 activism,
yeah,
but and you are in a lot of ways, right? But you do
mhm,
things for fun, right?
yeah. Oh,
Sometimes.
yeah, I have a fun life.
Yes.
Um,
Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what do you do? I like to ask people, because we, I have guests on and, people think we have like this like superhero cape on, right? and that
oh,
we're
no.
and we're different from them. But I want people
Yeah,
to know that we're the same, right? And everyone's
yeah.
capable of doing what we do. And but
Well, I
go
have to
ahead.
do self-care. I
Yeah.
mean,
Tell me
I
about your
have to
self-care.
do self-care.
It's essential
So
for all
yeah.
of us, right?
So
We
some of
can't
the things
yeah.
that I enjoy is I love to go to concerts, and I'm
Great.
very diverse with my music
Mhm.
also. So, I saw Nine Inch Nails recently here in Los
Oh,
Angeles, which was
awesome.
great. We
Yeah.
sat up front, and then 2 weeks later, I went to the opera. So,
Awesome. Well, that's good.
uh,
You're diverse in your activism and
yeah.
your music.
Yeah, I dance. I take a dance class on Sunday. I was a dancer when shouldn't say when I was younger because I still am young and I still dance.
Right.
And the dance that I do is like a regenerative health um,
Oh, that's great.
dance class about
Mhm.
movement and music, and
Yeah.
that really heals me after a weekend out at the racetrack, and
Mhm.
I feel amazing after.
Yeah.
I go to sound baths.
Oh, that's
Um,
fantastic. I
yeah,
love
and
that.
there's really good ones here, and,
Yeah.
that relaxes me,
Yeah.
and
I love that.
that
You're doing things for your mind, for your
yeah,
body. Movement in our bodies is very
yes,
important. And then
yeah,
also, entertainment, right? So
yeah,
concerts and to relax, let your hair down and just be Ellen for a little while, right?
I mean, I have to escape a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
always there.
Yeah.
When I go to the sound bath, all these
Mhm.
healers are there in, one of the baths that I go to. It's a very large event here at a beautiful place at an old church downtown. There's about 100 people that come
Mm.
to the sound bath, and then I realize these people that are healers eat animals.
Mm.
So, you
Yep.
know,
Frustrating.
then I have to have, conversations with them
Right.
after the sound bath. Like, okay, and I tell them I'm a little
Yep.
conflicted right now about who you are. And, we can heal our bodies if we're putting animals in our bodies.
Right.
Um, because, people that eat animals, ingest all their pain and suffering.
Right.
And I think that's not healthy. So,
Yeah.
I always have stuff on me no matter where I go.
Mhm.
Like I said, there's always an opportunity. And then, I dress for it. When I go to the grocery store or the farmer's market, I wear
Mhm.
something about the animals.
Right.
So when people approach me and ask me or agree with me, I can have conversations with them.
Right.
For me, it is very important to have conversations with people all the
Yeah.
time. And, some people, I have to, it's hard for me to understand that won't change. They don't want to change.
Mhm.
But I think if you give people the opportunity to get educated and give them the resources to educate themselves,
Right.
whether it be lay people or even healthcare providers, because, I have some issues with doctors that, you know, don't do that. Like, my husband died a few years ago. He was very sick, so we spent a lot of time in the hospital.
Mm.
And some of the biggest issues that we had was food in the hospital.
Mhm.
And that was one of my biggest stressors
It's
there. And
mind-blowing, isn't it?
it is. And one time he ended up in a cardiac unit for a while, and I saw these people getting discharged with huge bags of medications and, not being educated about diet and nutrition. And
Right.
that was the perfect opportunity for them, to get it because they all almost died
Right.
from, food related illnesses.
Right.
And my husband used to get like, you know, really nervous. So if they would discharge someone, I would say, "I'll be right back." And he goes, "Don't do it." And I said, "Oh, no, I'm gonna do it."
Right.
So,
You
you
make me
know,
laugh so much, but I love it.
and I was always kind with them.
Yeah.
I end up in the elevator with them. They had no place to go.
Right.
So, I would tell them, "Hey, I see you're getting discharged. I didn't hear anyone talk to you about food and
Mhm.
nutrition. And I'm going to give you some resources where you can do your own education and take your health back in your hands."
Right.
And so I would give them, information about documentaries and, doctors that I work with that are vegan, that are very well known, that are amazing.
Yeah.
And then I would give them outreach material. And I would tell them, do your research, you know,
Yeah.
your doctors aren't always right. And it's your body, and you can put whatever you want into it. I said, but you're leaving here with 20 different pills of medication,
Right.
which is not going to cure you. The only thing that's going to fix
Right.
you is your diet.
Mhm.
So they couldn't wait for my husband to get discharged in that hospital. I mean, they were like, "Oh my god,"
S
because,
She's been up and down the elevator all day talking to people,
I
right?
know, and the nurses and, everyone,
Right.
that worked on the floor had to know what was going on,
Mhm.
and they don't get it either. Like,
Right.
I had a nurse come in my husband's room, it said on the board that, he was vegan,
Right.
and I walked in one day unannounced at lunch, and they had just served lunch, and they gave him a turkey sandwich,
Mm.
and I flipped out.
Right.
So, I went to the nurse's station, asked to talk to the, dietitian, and, they got a big talking that day, and, but
Yeah.
I had a nurse come in one day, and she was, doing her chart notes, and she asked me, like, very innocently, she says, "So, do you guys eat fish?" And
Right.
I said, "Well,
Right.
as far as I know, fish are not a plant,
Right.
and eating fish is eating meat."
Right.
And she wasn't being sarcastic. I mean, she
Yeah.
honestly didn't know.
Right. So many people think I did an episode with, Mary Finelli from Fish Feel,
Mhm.
last season, and the title was "Fish Are Animals,"
Yeah.
because people they don't realize, they think that fish are this benign thing, that they don't feel pain and they don't,
Oh, yeah.
but they are animals. They live and breathe and they want to live and, and, Yeah, I think go ahead.
People believe that. I
Yeah.
mean, we have a live fish market here in San Diego, at a place called Tuna Harbor, of all
Mm,
places.
right,
And I decided a few years ago, I think, it's time we start protesting there and
right.
disrupt. So, I gathered some people, and, people could buy, I hate to even say this word,
Mm,
fresh fish,
mhm.
but, they were chopping them up on this small pier with all these fishing boats there.
Right.
It was so disgusting.
Yeah,
And hundreds of people would line up, for the fish market to open.
right.
So we had protesters outside and we had lots of information for them.
Mhm.
And then I decided that I would wear a bloody white apron and go onto the pier with
Right.
the people shopping, which they were appalled.
Right,
They're like, they were so mad at me. They're like,
right,
they're like, "Why are you wearing this bloody apron?" And I said, "Well, why are you watching them chop up bloody fish?"
right,
I'm like, "The blood on my apron is not real blood,
right.
but here you are, watching them, cut these
Yeah,
animals apart." I said, "With your children,
right,
and you're offended because I'm wearing a white apron with blood
right.
on it."
You're making them take notice of what's really
Yeah,
happening where people are just, like, in this fog, right? They
yeah,
just go through their life just kinda just believing everything, or they don't wanna know a lot of times.
yeah.
So I think that's why disruptions are really
Oh,
a good
yeah.
form of activism,
And I wasn't
and it's
screaming at anyone
unexpected
on the
and
pier.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
S
people think yeah, talk about disruptions a little bit because I do think that people think that, they're always, like, people just, saying you're a murderer or whatever,
Yeah.
but it's not always like that.
No, there's a time and place for everything.
Right,
Like when I was on the pier, like the people that work there that run the pier didn't want me on the pier. They're like, "You can't go
right,
on here." And I said, "Well, I'm on here." And they're like, "Well, we're going to call the police." And I'm like, "I don't care. Call the police.
right,
I am not breaking the law. So,
right.
go ahead and call the police."
Mhm.
And, 9 out of 10 times, the cops knew me when they came. So,
Right,
they just left me alone. So there's, different forms of
right,
disruption, which doesn't mean you have to be screaming at people, calling them
right,
names. Just your presence there with me in a bloody apron was
right,
a disruption.
right. And there's a difference between disruption and civil disobedience too. And
Exactly.
I think a lot of people don't understand that either.
Yeah.
I think that I feel, and I don't know if you agree, but I feel like there's a lot of, Facebook groups and things that are vegan groups, and
Hmm.
they're not activists, right? And I'm hoping this podcast will inspire some people
Yeah.
because when you're vegan, we want everyone to be vegan, right?
Yes.
But we have to do more than just be vegan,
Yeah.
we can only save a finite number of animals by just ourselves being vegan. But if we spread the message and find a way that
Hmm.
works for you, and I think that people are afraid. So what do you say to people who are afraid? Someone who, I think there's couple different groups of people. Some people may be overwhelmed
Yeah.
by this conversation, right? Like, "Oh my god,
Oh,
I
yeah.
could never do what Ellen does," right? And then there's people that are like, "Oh, I don't want anyone to say something bad to me, or I don't wanna get in trouble,
Hmm.
or that's civil disobedience, and I don't wanna do
Mhm.
that," or so there's a lot of stuff, right, that people have surrounding
Yeah.
activism. So what do you go ahead.
I tell people you have to do what's comfortable for you.
Right.
You don't have to come to a protest. There's other things you can do.
Mhm.
Simple little like at work, a lot of people, their coworkers are not vegan.
Mhm.
What I do is I'll bake and bring in vegan
Yes. You can do
treats.
food
Yeah.
activism. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
we've
love that.
done, a lot of that here in San Diego where, um, like at St. Patrick's Day parade, they had booths after, and we
Mhm.
would set up booths and hand out vegan food and not tell people that what they were eating was vegan,
Mhm.
and then have great conversations with them.
Right.
Um, at Earth Day, we would have booths. I work with Mercy for Animals and Farm for years where we did pay-per-view, which I really enjoy doing, and I used to
Yeah.
teach it, to other activists so they could do it also.
Explain what that is because for people who might not
Yeah,
know.
so pay-per-view, and they're not doing it anymore,
Mm, I think
they've
that was
kind of
great.
phased out,
Yeah.
but we'd set up a booth, we'd have, iPads or computers there,
Mhm.
and we would lure people in.
Right.
It just cracked me up. You know, we would offer them
Right.
$1
$1.
to watch a 6-minute video,
Yeah.
and
But people did it. It sounds
they
like
d I mean, they
really
would do it, they would come in and, and I'd have, like, 2 people on one iPad with
Mm,
headphones, and, you know, I would tell them, "We're gonna pay you $1 to watch
right.
this video." I said,
Yeah.
"It's about animals
Right.
and pain and suffering that they endure."
Right. It's the
And,
6 minutes long, you said?
yeah,
Okay.
one is 6, one is 4. There's a couple
Yeah.
different
That's a
ones
long
that have.
time. That's a long ti
Yeah.
6 minutes is a long time to watch.
Yeah, and I
But
would stay and observe them,
yeah, yeah.
and they were, like, flabbergasted about what
Mm.
they were watching.
'Cause you can't unsee it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they couldn't even talk after, and some of
Mhm.
them would be like, "I didn't know that happened."
Right.
And I said, "Well, how do you think your food gets to the grocery store? These animals don't voluntarily give up their life so you can eat."
Right.
So,
I love
we
that.
give them material, we give
Mhm.
them support, and it's just planting seeds. I mean,
Mhm.
you can't make people, change their beliefs. I mean, we were all raised where our parents and my family tried to get me to eat it,
Mhm.
but it's cultural, and there's so much more to it besides being a vegan. I
Right.
mean, the word vegan has a very big meaning for a lot of different people,
Right.
and it just kind of um I just have a hard time sometimes with not with vegans, but,
Mm.
how we can be so different from people that eat animals.
Mhm.
Like, there's something in our brains that's
Right.
different, I think, with vegans. So in
Yeah.
2018, when the animal rights conferences were going on,
Yeah.
they had a conference in LA,
Mhm.
and I did get an award that year, and I don't
Yeah.
like getting awards. They kind of made me take it. Um, but I,
You
you know,
deserve you deserve a lot of awards for everything you
Yeah,
do
but
every
I
day.
don't do it for awards
Right.
at all, and
Right.
I don't even like to be known for that.
Mhm.
But what happened at that conference, there was a new movie that came out, called Dominion, which
Mhm.
is like Earthlings, but it came from
Right.
Australia, and it
Right.
was like 7 years of documentation in slaughterhouses.
Mhm.
So I met the producers there, and, because of the award, I told them I want to bring this movie to San Diego and show it in a movie theater. Can I get
Mhm.
a copy of your movie?
Awesome.
And they
Yeah.
said, "Okay."
Yeah.
So, I leave the conference, I come back here and I'm like, "Okay, how am I gonna do this?" So, I reeled in a couple of my friends that
Mhm.
were activists, and we had, set this up. We had to do it quickly, and, we put it together in just a few weeks. We talked to a large independent movie theater here in my neighborhood where um they showed a lot of indie films and documentaries, and so they were on board.
Mhm.
And so, we ended up renting their largest theater. I think it's seated 250 people.
Wow.
And then we had movie posters made, like, they put in front of the theater, and
Mhm.
we had one made up of Dominion, and then I had smaller ones that we put all over town. And then, we had to sell tickets to it
Mhm.
to pay for the theater,
Right.
and, we had local vegan organizations because we decided to have a raffle there to
Oh,
get
that's good.
people to come.
Yeah.
So most of the vegans wanted to come, and I told them they couldn't come unless they brought a non-vegan.
That's 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 perfect.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
so,
Because
um
we just can't have the choir sitting there. And
Yeah,
first
I'm
of all,
like, "You already
re
know. If you don't
right,
bring someone that's not vegan, don't come."
right, you
I mean,
already know,
like,
and you're re-traumatizing yourself. Like, at
yeah,
least have somebody there and experience the trauma with them and then change them at the
huh.
same time, right? Yeah.
And I'd already seen the movie twice that weekend, and it
Yeah.
it was extreme.
Yeah.
So,
That's a lot.
I paid for a lot of people's tickets that I knew
Mhm.
that were non-vegan, and they came. We were packed. It was sold out,
Right.
and so I had little pamphlets made up before the movie with my name and a couple other friends, for people to call after they saw the movie,
Mhm.
like self-care pamphlets,
Yeah.
and then before the movie and some people were there, they weren't even sure what they were gonna watch. So
Oh,
before the movie, I
they were
spoke to the
shocked.
audience and I told them, "What you're gonna see is disturbing, but it's
Mhm.
very important that you sit through the whole movie
Right.
and absorb it, take it all in, even though it's difficult."
Yeah.
And so I think 2 people left at the beginning of the movie because it was, like, right in your face on the big
Mhm.
screen and loud.
Yeah.
And, but most people stayed, and then after the movie, there was, like, dead silence in the theater.
Mhm.
So, I talked to everyone after the movie to help them try to understand what they saw, why we had the movie there, how important it was,
Right.
because you don't see this anywhere else,
Right.
you know? So, and we passed out self-care, brochures for everyone to call because I knew it would be really hard for some people after what they
Yeah.
witnessed. And the same thing at pay-per-view, it was very difficult for people. Um, I don't know how many people stopped eating animals after watching that.
Mm.
I know one of my coworkers did not stop. We came back
Mm.
after the July 4th holiday, and at lunchtime, she was eating an animal. And, I asked her about it.
Yeah.
I know you saw the movie. I
Right.
said, is there something about that movie that you did not understand? Because I'll
Right.
explain it to you.
Right.
And she goes, no, I understood it.
Right.
And she didn't care.
Right. She's just, like, compartmentalizing it and,
Yep,
well,
yep,
and hoping that that's really not the truth maybe or something. I
yeah.
think people can do
So,
that. The
you know,
human
doing
mind is,
doing
it's
things
interesting.
that are a little out of the box is what I
Mm.
like to do.
Yeah.
Disruptions. We have a rodeo that's been at Petco
Oh, yes,
Stadium
the rodeo.
here
Mhm.
the last 2 years, and it's been awful.
Mhm.
Bringing those animals there. So,
Have you guys worked on a rodeo ban in San Diego?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, in the works, and we have
Yeah.
some attorneys, but I decided that I would start going to the mayor's house and the council member's house and disrupting where they live
Right.
and calling them out for being animal abusers.
Right.
And the mayor here hates me. I mean, when he sees me, he runs.
Right.
And I'll stand in front of his fancy apartment complex downtown
Mhm.
with a sound system that's taller than me
Mhm.
and just blast him.
Right.
And for me, it's shaming them in their
Yeah.
neighborhood. And we used to do this years ago at UCLA with the vivisectors.
Right.
We would go to their houses
Mhm.
and shame them for
Yeah.
several
I
hours.
remember
And we
that,
were
yeah.
loud.
Mhm.
And, you know, they were always trying to arrest us, but they couldn't because we knew the law
Right.
on, doing home protests. And then I went to the CEO's house at Petco, and we
Mhm.
had an animal rights organization printed up some banners and posters,
Mhm.
that said that the CEO of Petco was an animal abuser and supports animal abuse. And the
Mhm.
same thing with our mayor, Todd Gloria.
Right.
Um, and, we went to his neighborhood, and most of his neighbors were like mortified.
Right.
They didn't even know about the rodeo. And then a few of them weren't happy we were there.
And
Uh,
especially the rodeo. I mean, look, other forms of animal entertainment, it's so hidden, right? The cruelty
yeah.
to people. But the rodeo is just blatant animal abuse, and people
Oh,
take children there,
it's
and
so bad.
elected officials, they need to be held accountable, and that's so important to do. I think
Hmm.
people are afraid to do things like that too. I mean, not and you don't have to go so far as, going
Yeah.
to their house, but, attending meetings and writing letters
Yeah.
and, so, like, what would you say to people having moved forward with advocacy or activism? I think I kinda use the words interchangeably sometimes,
Yeah.
but what would you say? Like, if someone, was listening today and they're really moved by it and they really wanna be more of an advocate, and how could they start? Like, what would you tell
Well,
them?
there's city council meetings, in your districts. We went to one, last year. Our My district council member was up for reelection, and we ended up going there, and while we did not disrupt, being there was disruptive to him,
Mhm.
because of the rodeo, because they
Right,
have the power to say, "We're not gonna have the rodeo here." Our
right,
mayor has the power to stop it, and he does
right,
not.
right.
I encourage people, to go to city council meetings, go to town hall meetings,
Mhm.
especially in their district.
Right.
We have so much animal abuse here in San Diego with
Mhm.
SeaWorld and the zoo, the San Diego
Mhm.
Zoo, who everyone
Yeah,
thinks is an amazing
that's
place.
another right.
Yeah. The racetrack, and there's a lot of rodeos in San Diego.
Mhm.
And um, you can show up, and just support by being there
Mhm.
and opposing what's going on.
Right.
They'll give you 1 minute to speak out at city council meetings.
Mhm.
And, you know, if people don't know what to say, they can reach out to me and I'll even write them
Yeah,
something to say that they can
yeah,
just read. I think it's important that these elected officials know that we're not going to back down and that we're gonna be in their faces until some change starts to happen.
right.
And changes do happen.
They absolutely do. It's
Yeah.
happening everywhere from, like, even the recent fur,
Mhm.
that was a huge victory with Vogue to swear to not have fur, not have
Yeah.
fur anymore. I mean, these are huge, huge things, and there are municipalities that are
Yeah.
they're having bans on, anything from, dogs, cats, and rabbits sales
Mhm.
to rodeos or rodeo tools, and it does really
Yeah.
work, and so what would you say to somebody who doesn't wanna protest, who doesn't want
Well,
to who doesn't wanna speak at a meeting? Like, what could they do? I have some rapid fire questions to end everything with, but what is your
yeah.
advice to just a regular everyday person? Maybe they're vegan or they just became vegan or they've been vegan for a while and they've been a little afraid, but they feel that little bit of that guilt or that need to do
Um,
something, but they don't know what to
I
do.
I
What's your advice?
encourage people to, number 1, ask for help if they don't know what they wanna do or
Yeah,
how to do it. Um to reach out to me or other people,
right.
that are, in the movement.
Yeah. We'll
We're
have your
all
contact information in the show notes.
Yeah.
You always have our contact information
Oh, yeah.
and, but go ahead.
But I, encourage people, to get out of their comfort zone,
Mhm.
whatever it is, even if
Right.
it's having a conversation with a family member or a
Mhm.
friend. You don't have to be hostile when you talk to them. You can be
Right.
kind, loving, and compassionate.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that activism makes you a mean person.
Right.
I'm not a mean person, although
No.
I can be a bitch sometimes. Um, excuse my French. Um,
But you're
but
not a mean person. You're always
no,
leading with, when you're speaking for the animals, and I
yeah.
I think when you remind yourself of that, things flow a little bit easier,
Yeah, I
you
mean, we're
know?
not doing it for us. Like,
Right.
people will tell me, even at the racetrack,
Mm.
"This is your agenda, and, we don't believe in your agenda." And I tell
Right.
people, "This is not my agenda. I'm just
Right.
telling the truth about
Exactly.
these
Right.
industries and what happens to animals. It
Yeah.
it actually has absolutely nothing to do with who I am."
Right. They're not being transparent, right? So they are
Exactly.
not letting their patrons
Yeah.
know what's really happening, and that's what's really important.
Exactly, and that's
So
the whole thing at the racetrack.
right.
I'll just touch base on that real quick,
Yeah.
that I think, horse racing will end in California next,
Mhm.
and, I see what these protests have done out at Del Mar over the years.
Mhm.
Saturday used to be their busiest day,
Right.
and now it's their slowest day. I can count how many people are at the racetrack,
Right.
and I come very close every week on their attendance.
Right.
And that is from years of educating people at
Right.
the racetrack
Right.
and educating the
And
media.
it takes years. And I
It
think
does
that's
take
another
years.
thing that people
Mhm,
they have to you have to put in your mind in the beginning of this when you start, it's the long game. This isn't going we're not
mhm.
going to end these cruel industries overnight, but we'll never end them if you don't I always like to say, I don't know who said it first, I didn't, but if nothing changes, nothing changes, right?
Yeah,
So I think it's
yeah.
another thing we should think about too as we're, well, I'm afraid or I don't know what to do. But you want change, right? So you have to change something, right?
But I've
And
had some successful campaigns that were
yeah, absolutely.
major,
Yeah.
like with Southwest Airlines,
Yes.
that was supporting SeaWorld,
Right.
and then I ended up targeting them years ago,
Mhm.
and I worked with an activist in Texas and drew up a petition, and their main hub is in Texas, and
Yep,
then I
right.
decided I would have protests at the airport. It
Mhm.
took me 6 months to get vetted by the FBI and, um
You need to okay,
TSA.
okay, someone needs to write the book of your life because
Yeah. Anyway, it took me, several months, so I could have protest inside the airport.
Wow.
And I remember my first meeting out at the airport. I thought I was going to meet the man in charge of security, and
Mhm.
when I got called into this big conference room, there was like 18 people in there,
Oh,
and
wow.
I thought, "Oh dear," and they were all hostile.
Oh, my.
I mean, they were, so I was in there with them for a few hours, and by
Mm,
the time we got out, they had changed their thoughts about me because I
right.
had to tell them why I was doing what I was doing, and they got it.
Mhm.
Anyway, I had 5 big protests out there. I had special banners and posters made. It cost me a lot of money. I
Mm,
couldn't get any money from any organizations. I used my own money
mhm.
and got a lot of media. So
Mhm.
anytime I had a SeaWorld protest, we went to the San Diego airport, and
Mhm.
I was allowed to have a protest in front of the Southwest counter.
Awesome.
And it was great. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, like, so great.
Right.
And then Southwest Airline had considered ending their ties with SeaWorld and wasn't gonna do it until the end of the year. And then we, dropped the petition. There was, like, 200,000 signatures on it.
Mhm.
And then I talked to them, I think after my 4th or 5th protest, their, higher ups, and they told me they were gonna sever their ties
Mm.
with SeaWorld.
Right.
One of my conditions with them was they had airplanes here with orcas painted on them,
Oh, right. Mhm.
and I told them they had to repaint their planes,
Yeah,
which they did do.
that is awesome.
And,
That's a
so that
huge
was
victory.
that was a big win.
Yeah.
There are little things, but big things,
Yeah.
and, a lot of people became aware of SeaWorld because of that campaign, and it was a good campaign,
Yeah.
and,
It sure was. Yeah.
so I don't know.
Well,
As far as
I
activists, I will mentor anyone that wants help. Anyone.
right.
If they want to become a vegan, I'll go grocery shopping with them. I'll show
Right.
them how to cook. I mean, I'll do whatever
Whatever
they
it takes,
need,
right?
whatever it takes.
That's right.
If someone needs
I
help,
love
I'm
that.
going to help them.
Yeah.
It's just part of, I think it's just our job
Right.
as
Yeah.
activists and as
Yeah.
vegans. That's our job.
Yeah.
We have to be able to help people make the
Right.
transition, encourage them,
Yeah.
come to protests. If they don't want to come to protests, that's okay. There's
Mhm.
other things they can do. They can leaflet,
Right.
they can do campaigns online, they can start petitions,
Right.
or they can just talk to family members where
Yeah.
they feel safe and
Right.
encourage them to stop doing what they're doing.
Right.
So
There's
it's
so
the
many forms of activism, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I love
So
that, and I with anything, you're gonna get a lot of no's before you get a yes,
mm,
right? Like, when you're having person-to-person interactions. If you want to do this and you're not sure how to do it, find a mentor,
yeah,
contact Ellen, she'll help you,
yeah,
and it's like just learning how to have the conversations. role playing is good. Like
Oh, yeah.
I did it with Patrick a few times years ago. Like
Mhm.
I want to talk to people about this, but I don't want to get emotional or heated, because I'm Italian, so like
Look,
I'm on
same.
fire right away, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, finding a way to like, just talk to people in a
Mhm.
calm way and just hear them too, right?
Oh, yeah, you
And I
have
think
to listen. I mean, that's the
yeah.
most important part. I'm
Mhm.
also a mentor for the organization Vegan Outreach. So
Oh,
if
awesome.
someone reaches out to them and says, "I need help," and they're
Yeah.
in San Diego, they'll hook me up with them so I can help them,
Oh, that's great.
which I love.
All of our
And
listeners can reach out to you too.
absolutely,
Right, I love that so
absolutely.
much.
They can call me, they can text me, they can email me. Um, that's our goal. That's our
Yeah,
purpose as being outspoken activists
right,
is to teach other people and mentor them because I'm not
right,
going to be here forever. You're not going to be here forever.
right.
And, we have to kind of pass the torch down
That's
and
right.
teach the youngins um,
That's
how to
right.
do it, you
Yeah,
know.
because I feel like the movement is aging out in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think there's a movement through colleges right now where they're
Mhm.
doing more. There's some groups doing that, and I think that's really
Yeah, I
good.
love it.
But yeah, but I do think that, we need more younger people, and then
Yeah,
but at any age, you can be an activist and you can be a voice for the
exactly.
animals. So,
Yeah. Yeah, there's no age limit on
yeah,
activism.
that's right.
Any age works.
That's right, I love that. So,
Yeah.
oh my god, I could have you on, like, for a million episodes, and I will have you back because
Oh,
there's
I'd love
always
to
so much
come
to talk
back.
about, and it was so much fun talking to you today,
Oh,
and
thank
and
you.
I think that it's so important, for vegans, animal rights activists to have a place, to come to and
Mhm.
learn and talk from each other. And I really appreciate you being here. And I have some fun questions I like to do at the end with some of our
Okay.
guests. And I do, they're just a few, I'm going to like rapid fire, like don't think, just answer type
Okay.
questions,
Okay.
to wrap it up. So, okay, ready?
Yes,
Ready?
I'm
Okay.
nervous, but
All
go
right.
ahead.
They're not bad ones.
Okay.
Okay. Well, some are easy. Okay. Favorite food?
I like, broccolini.
Broccolini? Ooh, I like that too. That's a really good
Yeah.
one.
Uh-huh.
Okay, least favorite food?
Um, let's see. Anything slimy.
Anything slimy?
Yeah,
What's
like
slimy?
okra.
What figure okra. Oh, yeah, okra.
Yeah, I don't like
It's
okra.
slimy.
Yeah.
I like to ask those ones because I want people to know that we're like normal people too. We don't just like
Yeah.
we're not like, the vegans just like, like like with unicorns and, there's
Oh,
things we
yeah.
like and don't like.
Yeah.
Okay, morning person or night owl?
Both.
Both.
I don't sleep,
She
and I'm
doesn't
up
sleep.
early every day.
This is how she does it, folks. She doesn't sleep. Okay, guilty pleasure, a show, a movie, a book, or anything in between.
Um, I am a foodie, so I do and I'm trying not to eat sugar, but that is my guilty pleasure is
Sugar.
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 Yeah.
What's your
It's,
favorite dessert then? What's your favorite
um,
sweet? I have to ask.
I like vegan ice cream. I
Mm,
do.
me too.
Yeah, and with some yummy granola
Yeah.
and some vegan chocolate chips and things like that.
That's a good guilty pleasure. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay. And then finally, what is one small action people can do right now, right this minute for animals?
Call someone you know that's eating meat and tell them that you wanna have a conversation with them that's really important, and, just talk to them, and it can be a really short conversation. Um, like, you have to talk about the animals every day to as
Yeah.
many people as you can,
Yeah.
and, that's the one thing we can do to make a
Right.
change. Mhm.
Thank you
Most
so
definitely.
much. I love that so much. Well, I love you and I love this conversation. And I thank you so much for being with us. You're such an inspiration to me, to everybody. And I'm
Oh,
sure you're going to have some new fans after this episode
well,
airs.
I don't know. I might have some people that are not fans after either, and that's okay. If people, don't like what I'm doing.
Mm.
Sometimes it's hard for people.
I
But
I I don't think anyone could not like what you're doing. I think they may feel like it's not for them, parts of it, but
yeah,
I think it's inspirational, and I think, it could be overwhelming because some people
yeah,
aren't outspoken. It took me a long
right.
time to be outspoken, but I've known people who or they were just so quiet, and then they became outspoken once they started thinking
Yeah.
about they're doing it for the animals, so,
Yeah, well, we're all on the same team,
yeah.
and we have to support one another,
Mhm.
um, and not judge
Right.
people
That's tough.
for what they cannot do, and,
Right. Mhm.
but, I just look forward every day. I try not to look back, learn from mistakes I've made,
Mhm.
either in public or at protests, and just try to make myself a better person every single day so
Yeah.
I can stay effective, healthy on to a very old age so I can continue on this path that I've been on my entire life.
Right.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that.
that's my goal,
Yeah.
and being connected to, you and Patrick, who have helped me out so much, with horses and racing over the years. I'm very grateful for the 2 of you because I'll text him, like, at 11:30 at night, with a question, like, "I gotta ask you something right
Right.
now,"
I know. It's so
you know?
great, and we're so grateful for you too, and
Yeah, and
that you're out there
I'm so
pushing.
happy we're connected,
Mhm.
and I hope someday we can meet in person.
Me too.
That would be so
I wanna
amazing. I
pack my
would love
bags
that.
and move.
Yeah, come to San
It's
Diego. There's
freezing here.
plenty
I
to
don't
do
wanna be
here.
right.
I mean, it's cold here today, but
But
I
not
have
this
my
kinda cold.
yeah, I know. I
Well,
know.
thank you so
Well,
much,
thank you so much
and we'll
for letting me come on and run my mouth.
yeah, I love
So
it. Thank you so much, and we'll have you on again soon.
thank you, Nicole. I
Thank you.
really am, so grateful for this opportunity. Thank
Thank
you.
you. I'm grateful for you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, friends, if you're enjoying In Behalf of Animals, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen so you'll never miss an episode. And if you love what we're doing, it would mean so much for you to share this podcast with a friend. It's one of the best ways to help more people hear these important conversations. You can also join our Substack community for updates, behind the scenes notes, and ways to get involved. Thanks for listening, and remember, be a voice for the animals every chance you get.